This time on Knot Rod, we inch ever so closely to completion on the Studebaker.
Studebaker, as you can see, it's kind of moving along here. I'm gonna put a little bit of paint on there. We put a cage in it. We'll put a tunnel in it. It's got a rear end in it now. It's not fully mounted, but it's got a Dana 60, 456 gears, spool, 35 spline axles, disc brakes. I got to figure out how to attach the axle to the leaf springs because I kind of want to use the original leaf springs that are in it. I built some long ladder bars for it. Gonna have a pan hard bar going across there. 440's in the machine shop, so we're getting rolling on that. And that's kind of where the dude is right now. It's gonna have a 727 in it. I just picked up a used 727 TCI. Had low passes on it, I guess, manual valve body and all that stuff. 5,000 RPM, 8-inch stall converter for it, so that should be fun. Had a driveline made for it. So once the motor's back and assembled, then we can put all that stuff together.
So we want to turn this into a tilt front end, but in order to get it so that this bottom corner will clear the body when it tilts forward, we have to make it slide forward. So we're going to try to figure out how far forward it needs to slide to make that happen.
4 inches will just barely make it.
And initially we had thought, well, let's make some sort of a receiver system so that you'll have an inner receiver and an outer receiver tube, and it can just slide out from there and then tilt forward. Problem with that is receiver material is pretty big and it'd be difficult to get everything all in there. So what we devised is a system here where we'll have a piece of 1x1 that's attached to the frame, and then we'll have another piece of 1x1 that's attached to the fenders and the grill, and then we'll have a shackle system to where when you lift up on the hood you can pull and lift forward, and then it'll just pivot out and drop down, something sort of like that. And the beauty of this is with a 3-inch spacing on our shackle holes, that'll give us a total of 6 inches of total swing. So we can make a nice little compact system here that's nice and tight because it's all bolted together. So this is kind of a neat trick. I want to weld all these pieces of flat bar together. So instead of having to drill 8 separate holes, I only have to drill 2 holes. So now all we got to do is grind the welds off the end here, and then we'll have 2 sets of shackles with holes spaced exactly the same distance apart. While I was working on the shackles, Brandon was building a frame for the fenders and grills so they would now be 1 instead of 3 separate pieces.
What I didn't think about is how I'm gonna fit this bar in here because it doesn't go in like this. So I don't know how I'm gonna fully weld everything. That might be tricky, but whatever.
Well, I mean, it's just a race car. It only has to be tack welded together.
Yeah, it's just a hood. I mean, the whole front end falls off, you know.
Reduces weight.
These don't need to be that level, do they?
Why would they be? This ended up being a much bigger project than you might think. All kinds of cutting, welding, grinding, then more cutting, welding, grinding, and yes, you guessed it, even more cutting, welding, and grinding. Now we just got to get some shackles on there and we can test it. Okay, so this is pretty exciting. We got the shackles and everything put on, and now we just pulled the fender bolts, and I think it's time to see if we can actually get this thing to rotate forward.
Yeah.
I'll hold it back here if you can actually lift it there. The core support's going to fall out, but that's okay. And everything's just kind of mocked up right now. So we have the shackles kind of tight and stuff. Now you can get the core support out.
Oh!
Now it doesn't go all the way.
Doesn't go as far as we want it to go. Unfortunately, I think we need longer shackles.
I mean, we could probably reuse these shackles and just drill them further out. So a 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch there equals a total inch of spacing, and that gets us 2 extra inches of swing.
It's like a birthday suite though.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so we changed the hole spacing on our shackles from 3 inches to 4 1/4 inches, which should give us a total of an 8 1/2 inch swing from front to back when we go and hinge this thing forward. So we're gonna give it a try here right now. And everything's really just kind of mocked in place. We still have to put some bushings on the bolts and stuff to get everything to move a little more freely, but this will give us an idea where it's at.
And it's gonna have a track in the back.
Yeah, we'll build a little track in the back for it, but... So the thing still didn't tip as far as we wanted, so we had to resort to cutting more material out of the bottom of the grill. Still hits on that bolt ever so slightly. I mean, at this point, I feel like it goes out far enough, it just doesn't
tip far
enough. Well, we could change the position of the stop so that that drops lower.
Well, what is it like with 2 guys?
I mean, that's not bad. And then, yeah. I like how it sets down in there like that. It kind of locks itself in. Our ultimate solution was to cut the shackle stops off and install bolts with just the right size washers to allow the whole assembly to drop far enough so that during tipping, the grill would clear the frame and the steering box. Then we still had to cut just a little bit more out of the grill. And we have the fenders to where they come up almost perfectly perpendicular with the ground, so we're calling that good.
The plan for today is to try and put together the rear suspension stuff. These are the traction bars I made up, chrome LANs and a little safety deal on them. So these will go in, and then I just got to figure out a way to mount the axle to the leaf springs. So I want to reuse the leaf springs. So I think we're just going to put a shackle in there. We've got a little bit of room here in between the spring and the axle. And the axle's up inside the car further because of the bigger tires, and I didn't want it to be super tall. But I still wanted to use the springs, so I think we're just going to put a shackle right in there. And with the ladder bars and the track bar should keep the rear end in place, and the springs will only work to hold the weight of the car. Most guys would probably put coilovers on it or something, but I didn't want to spend the money for coilovers and all that stuff, so trying to keep this somewhat budget orientated. I've seen it done like this with the shackle. A lot of quarter elliptical suspensions use a shackle there. Don't really see it very often on gassers, but we'll see if it works. So right now, I'm just trying to figure out what steel I got to make the shackles out of. So I need to make the top and the bottom mount, and then I'm going to put the shackles in between, and I just got some brass bushings and some tube. And I'm going to weld the tube to my brackets and weld that to the rear axle and also to the U-bolt pad. I just picked up some 1/2 inch U-bolts from the tractor place. And then we're going to try and make our own pad for the U-bolts. So I just got some leftover 3/8 steel. Probably a little bit thicker than we need, but that's what I got. Be the axle side, and then I think I'll make the plate side out of these. It might be easier just to use this stuff.
Looking pretty badass with these under here.
It definitely looks right with these on here. So I'd kind of like to measure side to side. If I go up the lip of the frame, it's the same. If I go up the frame itself, it's about 1/8 difference. I think it's more important that it's square with the front axle, I think. Hopefully it won't crab walk too bad. I don't know. We'll see.
So here's another Studebaker history lesson. These have got to be the most complex leaf springs mankind has ever designed. They've got this crazy sleeve thing going over the top of all of the leaf packs, plus it's all packed with grease. And then there's also a shim in between all of the leaves to kind of keep this thing, I guess, quieter than normal. Although I can't see how that would work because you would think everything would start squeaking on this housing that they're put in. But, I mean, I don't know, maybe they looked cooler. It doesn't matter. It's Studebaker weird stuff, and you'll probably never see it on another car. So basically, at the moment, the axle is just kind of mocked up in there temporarily. So now everything's got to come back apart so that we can actually put all the stuff in there that it's going to have permanently. Okay, so theoretically, with the track bars on here, when I knock these U-bolts out, the axle shouldn't go anywhere. Cool, ready for the new stuff.
Oh, yeah. I forgot one thing. You need a hole for the leaf spring pin.
Oh, perfect.
So basically, if I was just to mount the leaf springs to the axle, it'd bind up really bad. It would move maybe an inch or two, maybe. And I tried it and it doesn't move much, so. Plus that binding action on the leaf springs would cause problems. You can break them and stuff like that. With the shackle, and that'll allow the rear axle to move on whatever axis it needs to move on, and the leaf springs to move however they want. So there should be no bind, really.
So in case you couldn't tell already, contrary to all of our other builds, we're actually trying to do things correctly on this car. Unfortunately, that means it's going to take a little bit longer, but fortunately, that means it'll be unlike anything we've already done. And pretty badass at the same time when it's all done.
Hold it. Here she goes.
Man, we keep building nice stuff like this. I mean, I'm kind of worried we might have to change our name from Knot Rod to something more like Hot Rod or something. I don't know.
Nah. I mean, we're still pretty low buck on this thing, really.
Well, I mean, we wouldn't want to set our sights too high, would we?
Yeah. No. Definitely not. Those shackles straightening out?
Yeah. They are, actually.
Okay, now it's got weight on it. I'm going to come down.
You can definitely see them working. That's for sure. They're doing their job.
You can see how they're supposed to operate now, okay? So you can see that it's trying to work there, so I think it'll work. So I'm slightly curious now on tire fitment. I ain't got enough cut out. That lowered it a lot. Yeah, I mean, I just cut more out of the fender. I should still have room in the back.
Yeah, I mean, you can either cut more back out here,
So,
or you
yeah.
can shorten your shackles. I mean,
So I think I'll probably end up taking 2 inches out of the top and just tie it into this.
it definitely feels nice and free, though.
Yeah, it feels like it moves like it's supposed to. Like before, when I had the blocks in there and the ladder bars on there, you could tell it was binding up. And honestly, that's a good way to break a spring too, is if you're binding it up. Because it's only gonna arc the front half of the spring.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're just gonna try and go.
They're gonna fight it. It's gonna fight itself, you know?
And this will give you more weight transfer to the rear. Too.
Right.
Cool. Well, we're out of wood. So it's gonna start getting pretty cold in here.
Yeah, it's probably time to wrap this shit up, I think.
So I've got kind of an eye for an eye thing going on here. I stole a pair of seats from Brandon for the Nova, and so I gave him these bucket seats right here. So, kind of lacking on bench space here.
Yeah.
I could probably make a little post right here.
Shove everything to the back.
So normally you would put a slider track between this bracket and the seats, but we opted not to do that. So the spacing on the bolt holes in the seats is a little too narrow for these bolt holes here, so I just got to make some of these brackets right here that are going to go between those, put some holes in the bracket here for the seats, and then we can mount the seats in the car. Pretty disappointed in my lack of ability to put these holes where they needed to go, though. Oh, holy shit. I think I actually got 2 holes where they need to go.
Sweet. Well, that's always good.
These are not actually the same spacing apart, even though when I measured them, it looked like they were. The hole spacing between like the bracket, it looked like they were the same as the seat.
They're off a little bit?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So I guess we'll hog these out a little bit. Measure once, cut twice. That's our motto here on Knot Rod. Oh yeah, now she's starting to look like a real race car. Oh, are you kidding me?
What?
These aren't 3/8 holes.
What are they?
I don't know, everything else, they must be 5/16. Everything else on this stupid seat is, bracket is 3/8, so why would they make those ones smaller? I have no clue.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, they're getting drilled out to 3/8.
Yeah.
Dude, I have never had this much trouble with holes in my life. And it's only because the cameras are rolling, you know it too.
Yep.
All right. Sweet, now we'll actually have a control station when we get the motor in it. All right, cool. My work here is done.
Oh, yeah, sweet. Now I can really actually wiggle around. Okay. Not too shabby. I think I got enough room. I like it.
So that's gonna do it for this episode of Knot Rod. The next time you see this thing, we should have the 440 back from the machine shop, and we're gonna get rolling on that. So hopefully the next episode on this thing will be running.
Hello? Oh, okay, cool. We'll be in. All right, bye.
Pizza time?
Pizza time.
Pizza time.
Yeah, you think you can stick your hands down in there?
Oh yeah.